Okay, let's make a start. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today, and welcome to this webinar on making the case and measuring progress towards a systems approach to healthy and sustainable food. My name's Alize, and I'm with the Sustainable Food Cities Network, and I'll be presenting alongside my colleague Anna from Cardiff University. So before we dive into the subject, just a little bit of housekeeping. So this webinar is being recorded, so the recording and the presentation will be available on our website in the next few days, so on the Sustainable Food Cities website. So this is a listen-only webinar, but you will be able to ask your questions in the chat box that's at the bottom left of this screen. You can ask your questions in the chat box and select who you want to ask them to, but it's easier generally to ask to everyone. If you're having any technical issues, we will try and help you sort it out as we go, but as there's only the two of us today, it might be a little bit complicated to do both at once, but we'll try our best. So if you can, just send me a message in the chat box, so just to Alize, and I'll try and help you out if I can. And finally, if you want to get in touch with either of us, you can you'll find our emails on the final slide of this presentation, so don't hesitate. If one or two of you can let me know if you can hear me fine, that would be great, just before we start, and then we can get started. Great. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks. Right, so let's see. Okay, so I'm just going to start by giving you a short introduction to Sustainable Food Cities. So I apologize to those of you who are already familiar with our work, but I'll try. I'll be brief. Don't worry. And hopefully we'll also see how this toolbox that we're talking about today links in with Sustainable Food Cities and actually directly stems from the SFC model. So, right. So the Sustainable Food Cities Network has been in existence since 2013, and we currently have 47 members across the UK. So what does this mean? This means that there are 47 cities, or we say cities, but it's really cities, towns, boroughs, just any place around the UK. So all of these places have adopted a similar approach to putting food at the heart of their city. So this is what SFC is really all about. So each of these places have, first of all, set up a cross-sector partnership with all the key stakeholders at a local level. So that includes various public agencies, businesses, academic bodies, NGOs and other civil society organizations. This partnership then sets up a joint vision to sort of identify where they're going, what are their goals, what do they aim to achieve through their sustainable food city journey, really, and what are their priorities. The next step from this is to develop a much more detailed action plan that will lead to significant measurable improvements across the board on health, improving the economy, the environment, etc. So to support this process, we've tried here at Sustainable Food Cities to come up with some sort of framework that will shape this work, that will help cities to undertake this. So we've come up with a set of 6 key issues that you should see here on the slide. So I'll let you have a read through. You can find a lot more detail on this on our website, but basically these are the different dimensions of food that we think should be addressed if we want to work towards a sustainable local food system. So under each of these 6 issues, we've identified 8 different actions that are just examples of the sort of things that a city or a place can undertake in their local area to improve their food environment. So as an example, I've just put a couple here. So you can see under the key issue 4, promoting a vibrant and diverse sustainable food economy, we have action 1, support new sustainable food entrepreneurs, and action 2, protect or re-establish vital food infrastructures. So there are 8 of these under each issue, and if you go to our website at www.sustainablefoodcities.org, you'll see that we've tried to gather, sort of in the same space, all of the examples of what cities have undertaken. So the examples of various cities who have actually put this action into practice. And also a range of different resources that could be useful to cities in actually doing this activity. So let me switch slides. Okay, so this is really all of this amazing work that we've tried to show. This is what we have tried to celebrate through the Sustainable Food Cities Awards that we've developed. So it was really designed to recognize the efforts that cities are making to improve all aspects of the food system. So here you can see the current award holders. So it's really recognizing the work that cities have done and have done through the Sustainable Food Cities model. So this is really a focus on a place-based approach. So recognizing that the action that cities are leading are focusing around their local area, and a systems approach, which means that the activities that cities are undertaking are aimed at improving all aspects of the food system, so across the 6 issues that we've just mentioned. This whole structure has been developed over the past 3 years now, and it's on this basis that we've built the toolbox that we're discussing today. So hopefully some of you have had time to have a look at it, but it doesn't matter if you haven't, because we're going to go through it with you today. So the aim is really to try and make the case for a systems approach to healthy and sustainable food, and making the case for local food programs. So through the network generally, we've really seen firsthand the amount of enthusiasm of projects and of activity taking place around food to address some of the major problems that we're facing today. So people everywhere are experimenting with this and are reaping results of working in partnership across all the food issues. So from food poverty to food waste, to sustainable food businesses, to procurement, and to food growing. And so an increasing number of people are really becoming aware that there is actually huge potential for change in this area. But everywhere there's the same problem, and this isn't news. I'm sure most of you will recognize this. Everywhere people are having a problem of proving what they're doing and evaluating their work. So this is really, the interconnected and complex nature of food issues means that causality between a specific activity and a specific outcome is really difficult to show, and results also take a long time to materialize. So for practitioners working in local food programs, the problem is about how do I measure and improve my impact? How can I show the worth of what I'm doing? And so ultimately, how can I make the case for my project in order to secure funding? And from the other perspective, from that of the local authority or of policymakers, their problem is, how can I be confident that what I'm investing in is going to contribute to achieving my goals, my outcomes? And how and where can I most effectively invest the limited resources that I have to maximize outcomes for my community? So this toolbox is, we think, a start at answering these questions. We don't claim to have found a quick and easy way of quantitatively measuring the impact of sustainable cross-sector local food programs, because that's a big question. But we have tried to go around this problem and to find an innovative way of making the case and to make a start at measuring progress. So that was a short introduction to really our starting point for us at Sustainable Food Cities, and how we got here. And my colleague Anna is now going to take you through the various steps of this project and how we came to develop this toolbox. So over to you, Anna.
Thanks, Alice. Well, thank you everyone for joining this webinar and joining this conversation. As Alice was saying, we came together to look at this problem of measuring impact, measuring progress, and reflecting a bit what that means for specific places with specific challenges. So with that goal in mind, we tried to link research and practice, and I'm going to talk you through about how the project came together and what we have been doing in the last year and a half, so you can also understand how this toolbox was devised, how it has been developed. So everything started from a demand from the Sustainable Food Cities Network and individual cities around how to measure impact, how to define success, and we had a conversation, a seminar around the future of our food, where we started talking around these issues and identify the need for indicators. Stemming from this interest, we decided to design a project that will measure progress of sustainable food cities, but also their impact from the bottom up. That is, taking into account what our practitioner needs from the ground, their perspectives, and also the existing knowledge and expertise that there is out there. At the same time, we aim to develop something that was useful for practitioners, a sort of toolbox that could be adapted to different places, that could be in some ways an inspiration and a guide to action. So the first step in the journey was to get some funding from the Economic and Social Research Council from here in the UK to try to develop this small project, which is just, as I said, a first step. So what we did, we can identify 4 different steps. We started with a literature review, then we conducted workshops around the country, a consultation with experts and practitioners that is still ongoing, and also we applied the toolbox to 2 cities, as I will explain in a minute. So first, the literature review was instrumental to clarify key concepts, such as what type of conceptual frameworks can we use to develop indicators, what is an indicator, and what type of indicator exercises are already out there. This also was a way of connecting with different processes that are happening at the local, national, and international level. For example, the RUA Foundation with the Laurie Center for Sustainable Food Systems and FAO Food for Cities are developing tools for mapping and assessing sustainable city region food systems, what is called the city food tools. They are taking a city region approach, and similarly, there are other actors which are very interested in looking at this city level, such as the Milan Food Policy Pact, which is in a process of defining indicators to measure progress in the cities that have signed the pact itself. We also have different exercises, for example, at the national level, linked to the 2030 food strategy. DEFRA published a set of indicators to measure progress, and we can find some inspiration as well. And now at the international level, I think we have very exciting processes developing, such as the indicators around the Sustainable Development Goals, which aim to measure progress against these goals at the national and international level. A review of these and other indicators exercises are compiled in the document that is cited here, Measuring Progress Towards Sustainable Food Cities, and that is also in the Sustainable Food Cities Network website. So if you're interested in a review of exercises, but also some of the key concepts that we're using in this project, you can find a lot of information there. So this literature review allows us to start thinking about what type of workshops we wanted to conduct, because we thought it was very important to start from the knowledge that is out there and the needs of practitioners. So we conducted 4 workshops in 4 different areas of the UK, where more than 100 practitioners came together to discuss about what does success look like in a sustainable food city, and how can we measure progress towards that success. The workshops took place in Cardiff, in London, in Edinburgh, and in Liverpool between November 2015 and March 2016. In order to design these workshops, we had to take some basic definitions, which I'm just going to outline very briefly here. For example, we needed to rely on a framework to develop these indicators, and we selected a theme-based framework inspired by the work that the Sustainable Food Cities Network is doing, as Alice was presenting before, in terms of the 6 different areas, but also what does sustainability mean, and the different dimensions of sustainability. So we started with that type of theme-based and goal-oriented framework. But we also needed some working definitions that allow us to build a logical framework. Therefore, throughout the workshops, we wanted to identify different goals, and we defined goal as an overarching aim, for example, having a healthy city, and then identify key related outcomes to these goals. For example, an outcome is a state or a position which is reached in order that the goal is achieved. For example, low incidence of diet-related illnesses. So it is a way of grounding these goals. These outcomes also help to select potential indicators, and an indicator in this project we define it as a measure of progress towards delivery of a specific outcome. That is an increase, improvement, change, movement in a relevant and measurable parameter. In the case of the healthy cities and low incidence of diet-related illnesses, it will be, for example, a decrease in the number of these diet-related illnesses. As you can imagine, the process of defining outcomes and indicators are very close together, are linked. Therefore, we need to consider them in conjunction. So taking these basic definitions, we started our workshops by defining key goals and outcomes. So we asked our practitioners, a sustainable food city, what does this mean to you? And we started populating that, which were the key aspects. After collecting all these elements that practitioners put forward, we grouped them in the different dimensions of sustainability: economic, social, and environmental. So we had these economic, social, and environmental outcomes. However, as we know, sustainability is a contested concept, and it means different things for different people. And despite having agreed this framework from the beginning, in every workshop things were a bit different. For example, in Cardiff we worked through 3 topics in terms of the economy, social and environmental, but then in other workshops they wanted to include the health dimension as a separate, or the governance dimension as a separate. Therefore, we end up working through different things and always being quite aware of being quite flexible to make sure that we were including all the perspectives. In the final framework, as Alice will present later, we decided to have 3 thematic dimensions: economic, environmental, and health and well-being, where most of the social aspects are there, and a 4th central element that encapsulates governance aspects and also systemic changes. We wanted to highlight the importance of the political dimension of the Sustainable Food City Agenda, and also all the activities, policies, and networks that are important to deliver good food for all. I wanted to highlight that these dimensions cannot be considered in isolation, that they are intimately related to each other, and taking a holistic approach, it is important to actually deliver long-lasting change. But when we try to work through indicators and frameworks and so on, we need to work to develop a workable tool, and therefore we try to select certain outcomes and activities under each one of these headings. The next step, after deciding what were the goals and what were the outcomes that we wanted to see in our cities, we started thinking about indicators and what are indicators and what type of indicators are important for practitioners. So we started thinking about indicators criteria and stem from the idea of SMART criteria. For example, thinking about indicators that are specific, that target a specific area for improvement, measurable, that quantify or suggest an indication of progress, achievable, capable of being attained or realistic, relevant, in keeping with aims and objectives, and time-bound, that is, that they are set within a time frame. But of course, as it was our ethos through the whole process, we opened this up for discussion, and we end up with loads of important criteria that were highlighted by different practitioners. For example, for practitioners, it was important that the indicators were available, that they were easy to gather and were open source, that many of them were low cost, given the current constraints that many of our organizations are facing, that they were accessible, easy to understand and to communicate, relevant and useful for different audiences, comparable, that they will allow to look at different cities and compare between different places, but also that they were timed, that we could measure them regularly and they could be consistent in terms of period of times. Credible as well, that they were robust and consistent and reliable. Some of these indicators could be collectively generated, owned by program participants, and also the participants thought it was important that they were diverse, that there were a variety of different types of measures, a basket of options. So that's a bit the idea of the toolbox, that it is something that you can cherry pick as well in terms of your interest. So we had high expectations in terms of the type of indicators that we wanted. But then things got a bit more complicated because then we had to connect these goals that we identify and these outcomes with actual indicators. For example, in terms of, this is an example for the environmental outcomes. For example, if we want to see a reduction in food waste, how are we going to measure that? At the same time that practitioners were identifying specific indicators, they were also highlighting where we can find these indicators and at what level we can find them, for example, at the local level, or the regional level, or so on. As you can imagine, after 4 workshops, we had a very, very long list of outcomes and indicators, and we needed to consolidate the results and also select which indicators were more appropriate. For this purpose, we asked practitioners attending the 2016 Sustainable Food Cities Network Conference in Liverpool to vote with stickers and also add comments to some of the indicators. We cross-reviewed this with the literature and also with expert consultation. But one of the things that we realized is that we had different levels of indicators. So some of the indicators were related with outcomes, that is, a state or position which is reached, so such as the low incidence of diet-related illnesses that I was mentioning before. But other indicators were linked to activities or actions that we can take to reach that goal or that outcome. For example, the existence of healthy eating programs. Therefore, in order to integrate all this, we build the following framework. This is the the toolbox framework. So we had some sustainability goals, some meta indicators or outcomes, and then that were identified by practitioners. And then also we had another list of proxy indicators or activities or levels for change that will help us progress and therefore towards those goals. We identify 6 types of levels of change: partnerships and collaborations, policies and strategies, infrastructure, public services and support, knowledge and awareness, and market-based mechanisms. And we populated them with proxy indicators, activities or actions or things that we can do in order to progress towards selected outcomes and then towards selected goals. And we included a broad set of evidence and case studies to support these links. So the next step after this has been to apply this toolbox to 2 sustainable food cities that have also recently been awarded with a Sustainable Food City Network Award. These 2 cities are Bristol and Cardiff. They are different cities, they have different starting conditions and different activities going on. So they have worked through the framework that I just presented, and Alice will present in more detail in a second. Worked through the indicators and highlighted in which areas the information is difficult to access or is not there at all, as well as how useful this exercise is and how they were able to link some of the activities to what is going on in the city. The results of this application, we have just received them, but they will be published in February as well, and they will also be integrated in the final toolbox. As I said, we were conducting a consultation. As you can see, the whole process is very bottom-up, it's very open. We try to get as many opinions, feedback, experience, expertise, and so on together. So we have been working with Sustainable City Network members. We have been also working with experts and practitioners from different organizations, from the City Council to Public Health to organizations such as RAP. And also we have been in conversations with other experts from other places that are in a similar process. You can still, as you know, you can still contribute to this consultation. This webinar is actually part of this sharing and gathering more evidence, but also opinions and feedback and suggestions about how to improve this toolbox. And we are particularly interested in gathering your views on 2 main things. First, if you think the purpose and utility of this document is clear, and if you think it's useful. And secondly, if you want to add in terms of these meta indicators or outcomes, in terms of the activities that we have highlighted as proxy indicators, but also in terms of the evidence and the case studies that we are putting together in order to support, to make the case for these activities as useful and as actually helping us to develop more sustainable food cities. And I think, Alice, with this, I hand over to you again.
Thanks very much, Anna. That's great. So we've just heard how we came to develop this framework, this toolbox. So I'm now going to take you through each element in a bit more detail. First of all, to make a bit more sense of all of this, and to see how it could be useful for your work, hopefully. So we come back to this conceptual framework. We're going to go from top to bottom. So if we start with the sustainability goals that Anna's has mentioned, as we said, governance is a bit separate, and we've treated this separately in the toolbox. So we'll focus on the health and well-being, the economy, and the environmental dimensions. So each of these dimensions has been associated with specific goals. So they were identified through the workshops, as mentioned, and they relate to the desirable outcomes that have been identified by public bodies and by members of organizations of civil society in terms of desired outcomes and desired goals. So under each of these dimensions. So of course, all of these, each of these issues can't be taken separately, and they overlap in many ways. But for the sake of the practical use of this toolbox, we've had to categorize them in this way. So you can see here, for example, under health, we have the main goals. Overarching goals would be improving physical and mental health and well-being by reducing food poverty, improving access to affordable, healthy food, promoting healthy weight and healthy diets, and increasing participation in food-related physical and social activity. So a little description of each of these goals is available for each of these dimensions. And then, so just below this, the next step was developing the meta indicators or the outcomes that will show progress towards achieving these goals that we've just mentioned. So here is just a few examples, and there are more in the full version of the document. But again, the workshops informed this section, and we try to identify the main meta indicators of progress that are widely recognized to be contributing to achieving the goals that we just mentioned. So this means that progress measured against each of these meta indicators is recognized as showing progress towards achieving the health, economic, and environmental goals. So if we go back a couple of steps, so in order to improve physical and mental health and well-being, etc., we would need to see a decrease in the number of people requiring emergency food aid, a decrease in the number of people overweight or obese, etc. So this is the work that we've tried to do in this section. And it links into the next section, the levers for change, or food-related activity. So as I mentioned in the introduction, this toolbox is very much linked to the sustainable food cities model, and more particularly to the award structure. So these activities that we see here under the levers for change, I just took an example under the infrastructure and planning category. These have been taken and adapted from this award structure. So we consider that these activities, all of these activities taken together, reflect what a healthy and sustainable food city might look like. So again, this is just a screenshot of a very small example of what there is in the toolbox. But so we've categorized each of these activities, or levers for change, according to which dimension, so health, economy, or environment, it mostly contributed to. So in many cases, obviously, these activities contribute to more than one, and we've tried to reflect this. So, where possible, as you can see, the bottom one, for example, the council, the city protects and/or reestablishes vital local food infrastructure, such as grade 1 and 2 agricultural land, local processing, and wholesale businesses, food hubs, and distribution networks. So that's an example of an activity that has an impact across the board. So this should hopefully, all of these levers should hopefully show that a place-based and a systems approach to food can deliver more than the sum of its parts in achieving long-lasting change, because it has an impact across health, across economy, across environment, etc. So the next step that we took here is that to each of these activities, we have added, this is the very bottom here, we have added evidence and case studies. So we've researched academic papers, reports, which show that this specific activity contributes to achieving one or more of the meta indicators or outcomes under health, economy, and environment. So, for instance, there's one example here that's been highlighted in red, and we'll go into the detail just in a minute. But the aim here is that with this evidence, it will be possible to argue that undertaking these activities at a local level is proof that progress is being made against the wider goals, even if there isn't any direct quantitative evidence of impact at this stage. So if we are able to show evidence that each of these activities have an impact on, let me just go back, on decreasing the number of people requiring emergency food aid, decreasing the number of people overweight or obese, then the link with the health economy and just the general overarching outcomes should become apparent. So this is the main idea of behind what we've been doing. So going into the detail of these of this evidence base, just to see how you could make use of it. If you see here, so for the first activity, we have a sort of a code system, 1C, 7A. So we'll see what this relates to. So here you have, for example, we have reference in the document, a whole list of the evidence. So one here is a reference to the Fabian Commission's report, Hungry for Change, that came out last year. And so for each of these activities, we've highlighted which part of this specific report, which part actually supports what we're trying to say, what we're trying to prove. So here in this case is that the council works to prevent the development of the fact that the council works to prevent the development of food deserts and food swamps contributes to improving physical and mental health and well-being, etc. So sorry for the going to and fro in the slides, but so here in the Fabian Commission's report, for example, there's a paragraph that says that the report recommends that local authorities should establish food access plans that will identify any physical barriers to affordable, sustainable, nutritious food in their area and develop an action plan to overcome them. Local authorities should build on the work already being done by the Sustainable Food Cities Network to boost access to affordable, nutritious food in local areas. So we've tried to highlight wherever possible all of the reports that show evidence that taking on board this sort of activity has an actual real impact. So another example here would be the Lawson Health Research Institute's report. So this is the Canadian study that used GPS technology which showed that exposure to junk food outlets had a significant effect on a child's likelihood of making a junk food purchase, and that therefore bylaws and policies should be enacted that restrict the concentration of junk food outlets around schools. So this is sort of all of the evidence that we've tried to collate in order to make it easy for you to find evidence of the impact here. Right, so if we just go back in the same reference here, in the same little bit highlighted in red, we have CS13, CS14. So this means case studies. So in a similar way as the reports, for each activity we've showed where they're already taking place. So which local authorities or which local food program has already put into practice this activity. So here it's the London Borough of Waltham Forest that's adopted a supplementary planning guidance document on fast food outlets, and Leicester City Council as well with their street trading policy. So just to show that not only this activity has an impact on health and well-being, as showed through the various academic reports and papers, but also that it's possible, that it's been implemented, and all the case studies have been taken from UK examples to make things a bit more comparable and to enable knowledge sharing. So links are available for the case studies and the evidence where needed. So yeah, hopefully this should show that a place-based and a systems approach to foods can really have this impact, have this strong impact. So if I go to the next slide, right, so just to summarize what we've aimed to achieve through this toolbox is the first aim was for local food practitioners is for them to be able to use this framework to identify and to be able to show which goals they're contributing to and therefore make the case for their projects. But we also hope that it could be used by these partnerships and other groups to help them plan and evaluate their sustainable food programs, because they're ever evolving, and having a sense of the impact is always useful to build on previous work. So the second aim is for local authorities or commissioners or policymakers. The idea is to make it easier for them to find clear evidence and indicators of success, to show that a place-based approach to food is something that they can confidently invest in. So this is basically where we are so far. We've got this toolbox, and even though it's currently a draft, as we've mentioned, we think that it's already something that could be useful, hopefully for your projects. But we would love your feedback on this. So do let us know. Do go back to this toolbox and see if it makes sense for you. And I'll now just hand over back to Anna for the final section. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks, Alice. So I think from what I'm going to be presenting now, as Alice said, this is work in progress. We know that this toolbox is just the first step in collecting all this evidence, in guiding action, in inspiring, and also making the case for this place-based and systems approach. So I wanted to discuss with you some key considerations around, well, what we've been learning through this process and what we wanted to do. So first, we wanted to make sure through this process that the indicators were developed from the bottom up, taking into account practitioner needs and perspectives. And we think this is something quite different from many of the indicators exercises that are happening in many places. We were particularly concerned about how we develop a tool that actually reflected that places are different, and therefore that the transition towards more just and sustainable food systems will be different as well. So we wanted to reinforce this place-based approach. We also wanted to make sure that we were not only pushing for measuring and assessing, but actually that we were providing tools for action that inspire people and help to make the changes that we need in our cities. At the same time, as some of these elements that are highlighted, I think some of the questions that are coming through, we also face the complexity of trying to understand and measure the impact of programs and activities, the impact that they have in the middle of a food system that in too many occasions moves in the contrary direction. For example, if we have lunch clubs, 3 lunch clubs open in a city, by how much would that decrease the number of people malnourished? Even more if we're in a context where welfare cuts are happening at the same time, or 0-hour contracts become the norm. We have started to identify key measures, but we need to continue working on this and be aware of the broader environmental context, as some of you were putting there. Of course, we need to understand the different drivers of change operating at the international, national, and local levels, and that reveals the importance of acknowledging that cities and municipalities are not contained entities and that they are connected, and therefore it's important to share and build coalitions that have impact at different levels, and that we can understand and tackle these broader drivers from climate change to food poverty. So just the final slide, how are we thinking about moving forward? And we hope that many of you will join us in this journey. So first of all, we're integrating the feedback and results from the consultation, but also from Bristol and Cardiff. And if any other city is interested in running a pilot, that would be amazing. I have to say that we have some international audience here today, but it's true that the tool has been developed thinking a lot about the UK, putting UK examples, although we have also international examples, but very grounded on what are the indicators that are being used in the UK more specifically. So, but we'll be very interested in linking to different processes that are happening not only in the UK but in other places, and we will welcome any feedback or opportunity to connect further. So in this line, we also will be communicating about this. We will be sharing these slides, this webinar, making the indicators toolbox more manageable as well, so that it can be applied more easily in the next year. And we also are in the process of not only communication, but also thinking about resources and how we can actually help progress to conduct some of these measurements, and how can we involve different organizations in helping with that. Given that we all have to assess or impact our activities, we need to think through how can we be more synergistic, and maybe including aspects such as citizen science or other tools could be interesting. And finally, we're also aware of the importance of integrating the diversity of situations that we have in our cities. Having indicators by different social groups or different areas of our particular city could be very important. And we're also aware that sometimes indicators can detach people rather than connect them to lived experiences, for example, of food poverty, but also of enjoyment of food. And we need to work better through those, identifying more indicators around that, or case studies. So despite the project ending, we really see this only as the starting point, and hopefully it will prove useful to all of you. We will continue building on this work, and we think it is important and a crucial piece to assess and define success in order to progress towards more sustainable and just food systems. So we're looking forward to your comments, to your suggestions, and through here, through the website, but also you have our emails if you want to send us any feedback. And as I said in one of the slides, we welcome feedback about the toolbox itself, if the purpose is clear, if the way we're explaining things are clear, and if it's useful for you. And also if you want to add any piece of evidence, case study, indicators that you think are important and are not there, please do email us and let us know.
Okay. Thanks, Anna. So I think we can, if you can start asking any questions you have. We already have a few coming through. So I think Emily, your first question about measuring food poverty in a difficult external environment context is really something that we need to take on board in our future plans about measurements. But it's true that we're not focusing mainly here on the quantitative evidence, even though in a lot of the reports where available, we've tried to highlight where research has already shown any quantifiable impact of local food programs on the wider health, economic and environmental spheres. So this is a really good point, and it makes sense to take it into account. So we'd be really interested to see how you've done this in Brighton. And Hannah as well, thanks. Yes, so just to make the link a bit clearer, because it probably wasn't that clear, between this toolbox and the Sustainable Food Cities award scheme. So there is a document that we have that we'll publish alongside this, which is basically a table that adds in which action under the Sustainable Food Cities award scheme actually links to each activity in this toolbox. So each lever for change has the key issue it relates to. So if it's let's say key issue 4 on sustainable food economy, and which action it actually relates to. So yeah, that will be available, and we'll share that with you. I don't know, Anna, if you want to take the question on the definition of malnourished. Do you want to take?
Yeah, when we talk about malnourishment, we talk about all the different sorry, or we talk about different forms of obesity and overweight, but as we talk about other nutrition deficiencies, so we are talking about this double burden that we have right now in terms of health, where we have people suffering from undernutrition, but also overnutrition at the same time. So that's the way we're looking at it from both perspectives. So we wanted to encapsulate that, not only forms of undernourishment, which is what the FAO and other organisms have been looking at.
Thanks. Okay, so and in relation to the attribution of the claim to, okay, our work has actually had an impact on this. Of course, it's a very, very difficult claim to make, obviously, but even without the idea is that with this evidence, hopefully, it's probably not sufficient. But the idea that this action that you're undertaking has been shown to have a direct impact. Hopefully it would be sufficient to know that there is this impact and that we know that it contributes significantly, even if we can't show that it has increased or decreased by a certain percentage, the levels of food poverty or whatever it is you want to measure. But hopefully this is something that we could measure potentially, but this would be looking at it in the longer term of how we can develop and build on this work, because it's a very difficult claim to make. And I don't know if you've picked up on other questions. I need to look through it maybe.
Yeah, so the question from Paula from Coventry. Well, one of the things that you can look at the impact of growing communities is going to the table, to the framework where you have the different levels for change, and look at what type of activities they are linked to growing communities, to the things that growing communities are doing. If they are about infrastructure, they are about knowledge and awareness, and then you will find, I'm sure, some of the things that they are doing and how they are. There's evidence about how those type of activities have an impact on health, or maybe the environment, or maybe the economy. So you can map it in that way as well. It's true that this framework is a tool that we devise mostly thinking about cities, looking at what is their state right now, looking at what type of outcomes they have at the moment and how they can change things, what type of activities they can do. But you can also look at specific programs and how they actually contribute towards the city moving towards more sustainable goals and food security goals and so on.
The idea as well with this toolbox is that we hope that it could be adapted by each local program. So the idea is that you could maybe map your existing action plan and see how it relates to this, and how you can directly build in the evidence onto your action plan or strategy. So then all of the definitions that you would however you want to measure malnutrition or anything else, you could just include references, include various other reports if you have some. This is just something that hopefully is sort of an open document that you could add into if you wanted to make the case locally for your program. So okay, just Annette, do you want to pick up a couple of others maybe, please?
Yep. So The question of Emily from Brighton, in terms of having all the evidence for an intervention in one place. Well, we have to see how we actually make the tool more workable, and actually that we can continue updating it, having the examples from the case studies, but also maybe new evidence that is coming through. So we definitely will be thinking about how to make sure that we can update it, and that, of course, we can make sure that some of the people that are here, but maybe others that are part of the consultation, can include the case studies and pieces of evidence that are already out there. It's true that the Sustainable Food Cities Network right now has quite a wide range of case studies, and you can find a lot of those in the website, which is an amazing resource. But we also thought that maybe in this particular format was quite useful to have it together. So we'll pick up on that and see how we can make it a participative and an actually evolving toolbox. I think in terms of some of the indicators having some paradoxes in them is something that we have been working through, and that we have to work through further. Some of the elements, for example, were in terms of food waste, and as Colin Sage from Cork is saying, in terms of food waste and the food that is being distributed in different in food banks or other initiatives, how do they relate? And also it was very interesting when we were speaking with experts about, well, maybe increases in food waste might be related to increases in intake of fruit and vegetables, because they actually produce more food waste than if we are just maybe eating ready-made meals and things like that. So there are specific elements of how we actually collect this data, of these indicators, that have to be like further worked out, and what are the relationships among them. So definitely we need to improve in that, and continue looking at some of the contradictions that might be there.
So if any of you are working on these issues, we'd really appreciate some feedback. Paula, we've been in touch, so it would be great to look at this further together. So if you want to get in touch with us at a later point, don't hesitate. If there are any more questions, we can have we can carry on the discussion. That would be great. And if not, you can always just get in touch after this webinar. So if there aren't any final thoughts, we'd just like to say thank you very much to everyone for joining. Hopefully will have made sense of this rather complicated toolbox, or some sense, and you'll be able to go back to the document with a bit of an idea of what's included in it, and how you can find the evidence and case studies, and I think hopefully the fact that it's all there in one place is already one thing that could help you save some time in doing this. But so if you want to comment, you can send us your suggestions sometime before end of January, before the 27th of January. You can send your suggestions to Anna, and she will gather them. So we can take a final question, Vera, if you want, and otherwise you can just email me or Anna. So yeah, I think we'll. Okay, I think we'll wrap it up here. Anna, are you happy with that?
Yeah, I'm happy with that. I want to say that thanks for the nice comments. It is, I think, a piece of work that is quite challenging, and we're aware of the difficulties. So yeah, having some support around this and thinking that is useful, I think it's very nice and encouraging. So yeah, we're looking forward to your comments and suggestions to make this tool, as more useful, and we really hope that you use it, and it helps you in your day-to-day work and in the work that you're doing in your cities and municipalities.
Okay, I'll make a note of your question, Vera, and we'll get back to you soon. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Thanks all for joining. Have a good afternoon.